Wonderful. Hi everyone, thank you for joining. So, just to introduce myself, my name is Mark Temple. I'm the CEO of IML AI, Immersive Executive Learning Environment. We are a Google Cloud Accelerator organization. Very proud to be, and we are involved in the application of AI in the context of leadership and management. What I'm here to talk about today is really sort of trying to boil down some of the learnings I've had over recent years. And I have a big corporate job beforehand where I was working in an AI application, and now the startup environment. But I want to share a little bit around how we can digest this very fast-moving, very oftentimes difficult to understand landscape. I think a lot of us are seeing many organizations come out with the term AI. Yeah, many organizations saying we are now an earning AI organization, we are a everything organization, but when you dig a little bit beneath the surface, it turns out maybe the substance is applied there. So how can we arm ourselves with the tools which are going to allow us to really understand that environment? So I'm not here to explain the environment totally. That would take longer than half an hour. I'm here just to give you 2 or 3 frameworks to try and understand, put these organizations that you see as you walk around this event, as you go about your day-to-day life and in your roles, in some context. I'd love just a bit of a short class to begin with. How do we feel about AI at the minute in terms of your own personal maturity levels? I assume hands off if you've never touched AI before. 1. That was more hands about a year ago. Hands up if you've written a prompt. Let's go as far as you've got. Yeah, hands up if you actually started developing your own complex AI prompts, some of your own introducing it into your workflow. Wow. Again, probably double where we were 12 months ago. Amazing. And hands up if you're a geek like me and you're designing AI tech. A few. Okay, you're probably my competitors. That's it. Wonderful, guys. So let me hop into our talk today. So what we've had over the last, and this, if you are really experienced with AI, it extends back a little bit, but what we've had over the last few years is this progress from very simple AI applications to increasingly more complex ones. I just want to sort of provide you a little bit of a framing for how to understand these. So what we had probably 3 or 4 years ago, everyone got their first taste of ChatGPT. They got their first taste of these assistants, Copilot. Some people are still there with Copilot. They got brought in and provide you with these wonderful but very sort of, I give, you give inquiries. That then progressed to more complex LLM assistants. It progressed to content, audio, and video. I'll talk about some of those, but we're talking about Synthesia, HeyGen, and suddenly you've got these multi-billion-dollar organizations that they bring. What at the time felt transformative now feels perhaps a little bit there's perhaps a little bit of a saturation of this kind of technology. Skills mapping, smart coaches. I don't know if anyone got hit by the wave of people doing, do you want your AI coach? Do you want to lie down on my couch, talk about the problems from a corporate perspective? And then increasingly we're getting into this complex area of dynamic avatars, the didactic concept. And across the board, what I'll come on to as I talk through each of these will be then the overlaying of AI agents. This wonderful term that, again, 6 to 9 months ago feels like every marketing department in the country discovered. And yet at the same time, we're not quite sure what it actually means, perhaps. So I'll try to get through a little bit of a description across each of these. Make sense so far? Yeah? Awesome. So what we're going to begin with, and I think there are 3 really critical things we need to think about as learning leaders. We need a framework for understanding, but then we need to understand application. How do I actually use these things in context? And then impact. If I'm going to use them, what's that value, what's that return? But the main focus for today is going to be on this framework approach. So what we've got is really kind of 3 critical columns to understand when you're looking at every single piece of AI. The first one is, what kind of media am I interacting with? How many people here who've used, everyone here has used a text media, right? Your basic prompts, your ChatGPT interactions. Have we started seeing audio interactions? Yeah, so about 20% of people are starting to get, only 20% of people here are engaging on an audio basis. And video interactions, 5%. So this is truly one of the emerging spaces here. So as you see, saturation here in terms of experience, but what are we seeing around the audio space? So what are we seeing around the video space? I'll bring some examples today here shortly. Architecture, are we looking at generation? So put in, get out. It generates something for you. It spits back a plan. It spits back a piece of marketing content. Interaction. I'm engaging in a much more interactive sense. It's a two-way dynamic. And operate. The new operate models have just been emerging over the last 12 months that physically control and execute within a computer environment. These are really being seen as the cutting edge in the minute. And then what data is it sitting on? I think a lot of people, when they see AI, forget that AI is only as good as the data it relies on. And in many instances, that's something that somebody in Silicon Valley has programmed on your behalf. You're not really aware of what it is. Increasingly in corporates, it is moving towards, they're coming up with their own specialist data sets. I know with BAE, I imagine you've got massive data sets that you're building off. And then corporate ecosystems. So we're seeing this advent now of Microsoft saying, we will connect to your OneDrive, we will connect to your databases. And suddenly you have this access to the wealth of data that the AI can sit on top, multiply its effectiveness within the specific environment, minimize the hallucinations, maximize the utility. So if we start at our most sort of basic environment here, the generation of text used hand native other piece, we've seen some wonderful technology come out from some of the big players in the market, the Docebos, the Cornerstones, and many startups here that look at content generation for learning and development, accelerating how people develop lessons, how they can come up with their course content. I'd imagine there's a lot of learning and development leaders out there now who, frankly, probably use LLMs and these sorts of technology when they should in terms of doing their day job. So here what we're talking about is, it's interesting. It's about presenting it almost as basic here, but it's not. The applications of this can be incredibly powerful and often the best way to start if you're new in your AI journey. We don't want to get too complex straight away. Get comfortable with some of the really basic, easy to apply, often now increasingly cheap and affordable content generation pieces so that you can get the customized what AI could do. Next, we're moving on to audio. 11 Labs, the one for Wellburn, you can talk and it will replicate your voice. And you come up with agents and interactions now that are audio-based. Notebook. Does anyone use Notebook LLM in the podcast? And they've created a podcast that everyone's listened to about something, a piece of content. You take a piece of content, you go into Notebook LLM, you upload it, and it will generate automatically this wonderful the podcast content for you. No doubt Google will have video just around the corner on exactly this run. Again, if you have an opportunity, fantastic to try out. But as we think about it, we think, no, I'm in an audio environment. My architecture, I'm still within a generation environment, and I'm still within just using the basic data. So here, it's quite superficial still. We're not getting to sort of corporate environments. And then, as we got to sort of 2023, 24, we started seeing Synthesia, Colosseum, Agen, plenty of these avatars that look like humans. If you haven't tried it, go on there, take a photo of yourself, put it onto a video, and have it deliver a lesson. Very, very easy. Very, very low barriers to entry here for something that can generate a huge amount of content that's going to make learning more engaging. Now, where we look at the content generation pillar, and now we're starting to get skills mapping, and this started emerging, I think, in Real Substance 2024. Eightfold are doing some fantastic work, NeoBrain and many others, where as you look at the corporate ecosystem and its data on skills, what people know, the emails they send, and you aggregate all of them to understand what are the competencies across my employee base. And I think that one of the really clear use cases here is for increasing mobility within an organization. If I can get that visibility on skills across an organization with AI system across it, and I can see where there might be a skills gap, have a skills blunt, I can match the two, and I can offer increased mobility to my workforce because of that, or I can increase my the fungibility of my workforce because of that. Again, decreasing costs, and the capabilities Eightfold, I think, are fantastic. So really, really good organizations out there starting to do some great stuff, which then we're working towards, and we've moved from generate to interact. We've moved from a text for audio, and I talked about the coaches, the AI coaches, Valence, Better Up, Coach Hub. I think there was a big Financial Times spread a few months ago of all these saying, is this the future of how AI did support your corporate, your sort of office, helping to coach people, helping them through difficult times, providing feedback, development advice. And there's been interesting feedback in the market. Some people have said, fantastic, really useful. Some people have said, maybe I prefer a human in this particular instance, right? This feels maybe like we've gone on a bit too far. But actually, I think in a sense, when you're looking at scale challenges of providing high quality coaching and development to a large organization, it's very expensive, very difficult to provide a good level of quality to everyone. And this can lift that for your companies. So would always recommend sort of taking a look at these, but I would sort of be prepared for a workforce that may need a little bit of coaching for adoption. We get to ourselves. I'll talk about ourselves a little bit more in a second, but here we're starting to get to video interaction. So we have a wonderful Mecri over here as well, with operating Innocent Bard as well, a fantastic sister company to us. And we look at using the advanced immersive videos to get people to put them into situations where it feels real. And the technology is getting to the point now where it feels real, it feels comfortable, and you can put people into challenging, realistic conversations to develop experienced exposure that they never would have been able to through.
Let me pause there a sec. Any questions?
All that make sense? Useful? Yeah?
Good. If anyone has any questions that you think of, I will be available after. It's more than happy to have a chat anytime. Yeah.
Are we using video avatars for ourselves? Yeah, I'll come on to that shortly, and I'll show you. We've got a brief demonstration. So, 2024, beginning 2024, Michael, AI, I've got this. Seems really straightforward. And then AI agents came along. Right, let's layer on another level of complexity to something that we're only just beginning to grasp. Why are AI agents changing infants? So at the beginning of last year, Arjun came out with a fantastic seminal presentation from Sequoia Capital about the emergence of what if you have more than one AI? And what if one AI was the boss and another AI was their subordinate? And the boss told them to do things. And the subordinate went and did it, and then told the boss. Well, you then added another AI, you could then work for that second AI and actually execute against that. And that initial thinking has blossomed into what I think is now the new revolution in AI, and rapidly shifting upwards the capabilities of what AI infrastructures are able to do. I mean, it's incredible. I totally recommend going into YouTube and studying this for half an hour when you get back. I mean, it's worth half an hour's time of investment. But principally speaking, we have four key areas here. We have reflection. So this is the idea of AI thinking about what it's doing with multiple AI within the mix. We have tool use. So the ability for a thinking AI then to have an executing and operating AI, look at their do things. We have planning. So there's this, it used to be that we would study prompt engineering. They were studying agent engineering, where you're thinking about how they plan ahead. What's going to happen next? What do these do next? How does that then manage the rest of the agents? And then you've got multi-agent collaboration. And there's what's the new one that was just in the news the other day? Bolster? Yeah. Where now we have for the first time AI and AI agents talking in a Reddit environment to each other, planning and helping each other. Go onto it, it's literally seems like humans talking to each other, but the AIs are helping each other in a community environment. And also, if you go onto it, be prepared to just hold on to the settee and worry about the future of humanity. Beautiful. Yes. So, to boil it down to its simplest, and again, happy to talk about this in a longer form whenever if people fancy a longer conversation, that typically in an AI agent infrastructure, you have an orchestrator. That could be you have planes for nowadays, a mayor, a president, a king, and that actually has a determination of how they orchestrate. You have thinker, a decider, and an executor. So each of these will be perhaps one AI in a very simple model, hundreds of AI in a complex one. And here's an image of, where Accenture and Deloitte of this world are getting to. They're getting to this layer of, we don't need to be there yet, but they're getting to this layer in Bex2. So this is how we use it. As I said, we do AI scenarios, and what we do is we work with partners, leading business schools, leading global consulting firms, and we bring their frameworks, their best practice frameworks for managerial development, leadership development, to create these immersive scenarios. But whilst we design globally, we use an agent infrastructure to adapt locally. And this is so powerful. The ability to create one model and laugh, right, everyone's going to go into a collaboration scenario. Everyone's going to go into a managerial feedback scenario. But then each individual can go in and go, this is my ROM. These are the issues I want to practice. This is how I want to, this is sort of perhaps the department I work in. I'm ready to take that, aggregate that information and design scenarios specific to that individual. And then they'll go and process all the audio visual and create the avatar and the environment for that situation. And then the user gets that hyper-personalized experience. And then they get the feedback afterwards that is tailored to their. And sometimes I look back at this and think 18 months ago, the tech wasn't as dudes. 6 months ago, and tech was a bit rather beautiful. And now we're getting to a point really on that cutting edge where you have something that wouldn't cost millions, taken months to develop, that we're now doing at a commercially available pricing. Curious stuff to video.
I appreciate your interest in supporting our digital transformation efforts. However, I'm concerned that many consulting firms, including KPMG, often focus on broad strategies rather than tailoring solutions to our specific operational challenges. We need a partner who not only understands the digital landscape, but can also provide actionable insights that drive real change within our organization.
I think the critical thing to begin with is to understand what your real pain points are within the digital transformation. So we can think about how we get specific in terms of helping you to address those pain points more effectively.
That's a valid approach, but I caution against just identifying pain points in isolation. Our challenges are interconnected, stemming from outdated systems, a fragmented data environment, and resistance to change within the organization. We need a holistic assessment that goes beyond symptoms and addresses the root causes, ensuring any proposed solutions align seamlessly with our overall strategy and culture.
So let me pause that. So that combination there, the latest AI video tech, using reasoning models that are going to have a realistic conversation with you that feels unique every time, that feels challenging. It's putting you into a situation where you feel uncomfortable and is really developing those critical managerial leadership competencies. So powerful. And then the AI agent infrastructure, allowing that to be tailored to every individual, their situation, their scenario. For us, I'm a self-professed geek. I love this. This is incredible, the technology you do now. And then for us, again, our co-founder is an organizational psychologist, worked for the Big Five, and we pride ourselves on the validity of the assessments that sit back ends. We do validation in partnership with independent psychologists, and we're now getting to the point where you look at this assessment. Our latest run had a validation of 0.9 correlation with professional organization psychologists. With ChatGPT 12 months ago, ChatGPT 12 months ago was about 0.36, now it's about 0.42. That ability to take, with an agent infrastructure, a transcript, a new data asset that we never had, beforehand it always used to be numbers and, results from tests, but actually to have a dynamic transcript that you can infer people's competencies and skills from, use AI infrastructure on top of that. And just a very brief testimonial from Learning Leland.
Process week for, but I think the proof of the pudding is I want to go and do another one. Yeah, but although they're hard and taxing, you really get like you did out and no. Just one more. I think next time I'll be able to do a little bit more around this, and I think that's testament to how it's structured and set up to support you.
Good. Let me pause there before I go to application impact for the last few minutes. Any questioners? Any thoughts? Okay. Cool. Awesome. So application and then Matt. I think a lot of the challenge, particularly when you're trying to convince people about investment for AI, is sharing where we're seeing that impact, either at the learning level or at an organizational level. For us, we tend to use a real kind of focal point on how are we enabling the acceleration point? How are we making this absorption of information faster? And how do we quantify that? Or how are we stopping people from forgetting what they've learning, and how do we extend that? And again, how do we quantify that? If I am going to be giving a training course every 3 months on a particular thing, I make that every 12 months because I have a self-service practice vehicle. And what is the quantification of the saving off the back of that? And then what does that mean for organizational value? We're working with financial services institutions of minute around regulatory adherence. How do we make sure their leaders are consistently in line with regulatory expectations? Previously, one e-learning at the beginning of the year, and then they worried that no one was bringing that after 2 months. And also they were worried that they were getting their EAs to run it for them instead of them running themselves. Now with this, every month a new scenario drops. They have to demonstrate there's a compliance element here to the data is there, which shows that they've gone through it. You can't fake a transcript. You can't fake a conversation. And the value of that organizationally in terms of that reinforcement phase for a financial services institution, for a professional services institution, is huge. Oh, sorry, Donald Trump, it's huge. Then focus on the application. So, rather than focusing, in terms of our language, rather than focusing on how are we enhancing a training course, I mean, we'll try to think about the critical pivot moments where these can be applied. So we think about role transition promotion. We think about engagement or retention. So we have a model we're doing at the minute with a consulting firm, which is around providing better feedback, training people on providing better feedback. And the language we talk about with their leadership is, this is a great way of improving engagement and retention of a new organization. Let's think about that. Let's think about the benefits of that in the context of what you're trying to do as a chief talent officer. Accessibility and enfranchisement. I say about our scenario. So our scenario is often, many organizations spend a lot of money flying senior leaders into a big venue and doing role-playing, immersive role-playing. Has anyone come across this before where, yeah, lots and lots? Do you have that slightly awkward, you got to sit against a fear, who then pretends to be a client? But there's a lot of folks who aren't able to do that. A lot of folks sit from a diversity perspective, working mothers, providing that level of accessibility, where people who don't have that opportunity or that enfranchisement, and providing this and scale in an affordable way is I think, a substantial step for commercial growth. We do a lot around commercial conversation or strategic negotiation with every big business tool right now. I think is last year it was a lot of risk conversation. This year it feels like everyone switched to growth sessions. As an organization, having people are in different stakes. Transformation, innovation, and skills-based mobility, another critical application point for AI. So again, when we think about AI, let's understand it in the context of our framework. What kind of AI is it? Let's understand it in the context of the impact. How do we quantify that? And how do we talk about the impact in terms of what it's providing to the firm? And now let's think about these application science where we could deliver a difference. 3 key things get, only 30 minutes and we can go into each of these. Each of these is probably a day-long conversation in themselves. But I think as a quick 1, 2, 3, as we think through our AI applications, as we put our business cases together, these 3 critical things to consider. And then finally, from our perspective, if you ever want to have a conversation with ourselves, happy to talk about AI generally. Happy to talk about sort of your organizations and the challenges you're facing. But where we focus on through our immersive simulations, commercial mindset, coach culture, leadership development, where there's an increasing ask core, transformation, managerial skills, and then 2 application areas there. Thank you very much.